Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Amelia Chipo Mashingaidze, consultant, certified life coach, and an entrepreneur. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and share. Let's get down to some work. Amelia Chipo Mashingaidze, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you so much.
Amelia, where does that name come from?
My parents, my father particularly, I think my family, my parents as a couple had a friend that was called Amelia. I think that they enjoyed very much. And when I was born, I was fortunate enough to be given that name. But I've been studying what that name means, and I appreciate it a little bit more. It means someone who works, someone who is endowed with gifts, and someone who employs those gifts. That
sounds like you.
I didn't know what it meant
sounds like
initially.
You.
But
so Chipo, you were a broadcaster,
yes,
an advertising and communications expert. You are a certified life coach and an entrepreneur. Set yourself up as an entrepreneur. And I want to ask you first this question. What have been the defining moments for you in your career?
Okay, I will mention perhaps two or three.
Yeah.
The first defining moment was when I went to university, I think. I had applied to study law because that's what you did at that time. At that time, if you were in the arts, they expected you, if you do well, you study law. But during that year, the pass rate was so high, I didn't have enough points to make it into law. They were taking 14 and 15 pointers. I didn't make that with the grade. My second choice had been psychology, and the situation was just as dire for me. So you could say one of my first defining moments was failure to achieve the grade that was required for me to go the path that I'd chosen. So my third option was to study English and have a subsidiary subject. And I had French as one of my subsidiary subjects and psychology. So that I call a defining moment because it was a divergence from my preferred path. But with hindsight, if I had not been taken along that path, I would not have ventured into other spaces that were truly me than if I'd gone into the path that I'd selected for myself. So it defined me in that I think divine intervention took me away from what was popular and what would have looked better. Say Chipo the lawyer would have looked better, I think, in the environment that I grew up in than Chipo the English graduate. But looking back, the English graduate had other doors for her that opened because she was an English graduate.
What's the lesson from there, Chipo?
The lesson from there is sometimes you are informed in your choices externally more than internally. I think if I'd been true to self at that young age and had introspected, I would have honestly said, law was not for me. Now, when I look at it, I would have failed dismally. I would have done well in that I'm a studious person and I really work hard to do what I do. And I would have succeeded to a degree. But I wouldn't have succeeded in fulfilling my purpose and my calling. And I'm big on that.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So let me share with you, because your story almost sounds like mine. So when I applied to go to the University of Zimbabwe, my first choice was law. Their cutoff was 8 points.
Yes.
I had 7 points. I spent the 2 weeks of, what is it called? Orientation. Yes. Sulking, being sour and everything else, because I wanted to go to law.
Yes.
And I was checking almost every day to see if somebody dropped out and I could go in. So there I was. I ended up doing economic history. I tried to do geography. The numbers just got me, the angles and the degrees and whatever. I ended up doing economic history and history. And here I am. So just like you, God knew what He'd created me for and closed that door. And I thought I should be knocking that door down, but that didn't happen. What's your next defining moment?
My second defining moment was post-university. I studied English, and as part of the English course program, we had theater. Yeah, we acted, and I continued to act after my degree, and I was a member of a group called OK Zimbabwe. Yes, and one of our performances was at Belvedere Teachers College, and I was one of the key actors. You know how you multi-role in some of these stage performances. I had 3 roles in that performance. And ZBC was there filming it. I can't even remember why they were filming it, but they were filming that production. And at the end of the performance, the producer, Richard Mulambo, I don't know whether you recall.
I remember Richard Mulambo, yes.
He approached me and he said, I would like you to try for television.
This is spooky. I'll tell you why it's spooky, but continue.
And I looked at him and I thought, this guy, I don't know him from a bar of
whatever.
So, but why me out of the whole cast? And I laughed and I said, why? He said, you've got a TV voice. And that didn't mean much to me at that stage.
You didn't know what that sounded like?
I didn't know what that was supposed to sound like. And I said, yeah, sure thing. Call me. And I sort of fobbed him off. To me, to my mind at that age, it was like this young man has seen a young girl on stage.
Yeah.
And he's found an avenue. He's found an entry point to start a conversation. So I went back to work. I gave him my work number. There were no cell phones then. I had a landline at home, but I wasn't going to give him that. So I gave him my work number, and he called a couple of weeks later, and he said, there's an audition going on for a morning show called Good Morning Zimbabwe. I'd like you to come and audition. I said, this guy's really serious about this. He really wants to talk to me. I said, oh, yeah, sure, I will come. On the day that I was supposed to go there, I had laryngitis. So I had no voice. It was good for me. I didn't want to go anyway. So I asked a friend to call him and say, I can't come. I have laryngitis. He thought I was pretending, but I genuinely had laryngitis. But he persisted. Long story short, I eventually went. I remember I was coming from a stock take at my job. So I changed in the cab. I took a cab to the station. And I was sitting at the back. I had tights and stuff inside, so I just switched and changed. When I landed at ZBC, the reception area was filled with these young people around my age who looked like supermodels. And I was plain Jane. I had my little afro, no makeup, just Vaseline on my lips. And I looked around the room. I said, I'm in the wrong place. It scared me. And I started walking out. And as I turned, Richard was there. He said, oh, you're here? I said, yes, I'm here. And he said, where are you going? And I said, to the bathroom. And he said, no, there's a bathroom this side. So he made me make a U-turn and go back inside. A week later, I was called and told I'd gotten the job. That was a defining moment in that there's a way that you look at yourself and the way that you look at other people, and you position yourself.
And there's a way that other people look at you.
Yes, that you don't even recognize. And I'd seen myself as a misfit just by looking at the people that were lined up for the audition. I thought, this is not for me. And I'd already disqualified myself. And so I was surprised when the call came and I was told, can you start? When can you start? And
yet broadcasting has become part of who you are.
It has become...
Because Richard Mlambo picked you up,
yes,
and you didn't think you fitted the bill.
He was a wonderful producer, and he introduced me to presenters like Georgina Godwin, you remember?
Yes,
Georgina Godwin.
Indeed.
Yeah, she did the audition with me, because what happened with the audition was you came in and you sat like we're sitting now. And the first part of the interview, Georgina would interview you for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you were given a break, and they would tell you, you saw how Georgina is. Can you interview her? And they would switch the roles. And that was part of the interview. In the production room, of course, they would be checking out how you present, how you posture yourself, your body language and your vocal tone, your excitement and all that. They were checking all that.
So hold your third refining moment so that I share mine.
Yes.
Remember, I said it's spooky, really spooky, because I was part of the Zimbabwe Economic Society whilst I was at the University of Zimbabwe. I get invited, we get invited to attend a conference at the Monomotapa Hotel, and we're debating, economics and that kind of stuff. And after the 3-day conference, which was a regional conference, ZBC decided that they want to run a series. And the guys in the Economic Society of Zimbabwe say, Trevor, we want you to anchor this. And I've never done this. I don't know what you're talking about. I anchored that thing. It became prime viewing between 7 and 8 in the evening. Zimbabwe's economic change or something of that sort. Eventually, Ibo Mandaza came and took it over. That's how I was introduced to the world, to Zimbabwe. That's how I got into journalism. Isn't that spooky?
Some people call it chance. I call it divine appointment.
Absolutely. Your third defining moment?
My third defining moment, I was already working in corporate, and I was in corporate relations department, which was really public relations and a little bit of corporate marketing. And there was a training that was required. And our training department felt they didn't have the capacity within to run that training, but there was no budget to invite someone from without. And because you're friends and you're mixing, at lunchtime I was talking to one of the training guys and they were saying, we're struggling with this. And I said, can I give it a shot? I don't even know why I said that. But I said, let me give it a shot. Let me put together a module and let's see whether it works. So I gave it a try. Fast forward a little bit, in the same corporate, my CEO at the time, Lukungwe Rume, I don't know how he got wind of this.
Ex-Old Mutual.
Yes. And I had left Old Mutual at the time, but he wanted his top team to be trained in soft skills, particularly grooming, deportment, and etiquette. And he invited me. He said, you did something before that I enjoyed. Could you come and train us? Have you ever experienced fear?
Wow.
I was very fearful.
What's the lesson from that?
The lesson from that is, again, people see in you what you don't see in yourself. And secondly, that we carry more within us than we realize.
That's powerful.
We carry so much more within us, and we are so wired to only express parts of us that society permits us. And what I had to learn over time was that there's certain areas of me that I must give myself permission to express.
Wow.
Even if other people choose to see me only as a marketer, only as a life coach, only as this and that.
Only as a journalist.
Only as a journalist. I have to give myself permission to express all of me in the spheres that are opened to me. So from that time, that's when I started getting other invitations, getting referrals. And then I went and actually got licensed as a life coach. And I've been doing it undercover for a long time until recent years, because even though I knew I had to find my own space to express myself, I still had this trepidation that people know me as Chipo the marketer. Won't I rock the boat too much? Won't I confuse the market? And then I just decided one day, you know what? The market must be more open-minded. The market must learn to be more open-minded. And another thing was just recognizing that if I was going through this, there are other people who have talents and skills that they want to express, and they're not expressing them because they're in the same quandary that I'm finding myself.
What advice do you have for people at home who are experiencing what you're just talking about?
Be true to you. God doesn't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. If He put it in you, there is a space that is created for that thing to be expressed. Mm-hmm. And there are other people waiting to benefit from that gift that you have. So you must be true to you. You must give yourself permission to express that. The only caveat I might put on that is be tactful in how you do it.
Wow. I'm going to hold you there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want us to go into your stint with OK 2008 to 2013. I want us to go to ZBC, your stint 1995, 2001 until 2008. Quite a colorful career you've had. So at home, please don't go away. Join us after the break.
As PR manager, I joined the corporate at a time where there was no stocks on the shelves.
Welcome back to our conversation with Amelia Chipo Mashingaidze. I like Amelia, but I know you are Chipo. So at 22, you became assistant editor of Just For Me, which is a women's magazine published by Argosy Press, which was part of Modest Group. You talk to me about why the choice of going into journalism and the highlights of that season of your life.
Okay. You remember I mentioned earlier that studying English was a defining moment because of what unfolded later on. One of my English lecturers was Musa Zimunya. And his wife, Viola Zimunya, said to her husband, you teach English. I'm looking for a fresh face to come and be my number 2. Because she had just been given the job of editor of Just For Me magazine. So Musa Zimunya came and put a sort of class advert that I'm looking for someone who's willing to try this out. Now, I'd never edited in my life, but I was a good enough English student. So I approached him. I said, I'm interested. And he said to me, I think it's better for you than teaching because I think you like your space. I didn't understand what that meant at that time, but later on it meant that it actually unfolded. So that's how I went and joined Argosy Press. I was picked from a class of English students to become a trainee deputy editor for Just For Me magazine. So I was trained on the job at Argosy Press through the Modest Group to become not only a journalist, but to also become an editor of the magazine.
Unbelievable again.
Unbelievable.
Because of what I'm going to share with you now. This is amazing.
Is there another parallel?
Yes, there is. Well, let me share the parallel right now. So whilst I'm an assistant lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe, I'm headhunted by Elias Rusike, the owner of Modest Publications, to deputize Jeff Nyarota and become assistant editor to Jeff Nyarota. I was never a trained journalist. I am trained on the job, working under Jeff Nyarota.
Incredible.
What's happening here?
I have no idea.
Anyway, continue with your story, yeah?
Yes, so I became assistant editor of Just For Me magazine. What I liked about it is it actually revealed what Musa Zimunya had said, that you like your independence. I liked the fact that I worked with people. I'd always wanted to work with people. I worked with people. I learned a lot about people because part of my job was lining up interviews, what's going to be the main story, what's going to be the supporting story, what's going to be the fashion story, what other things can we put in the magazine. And because of the nature of the work that was involved, I was really trained very quickly at a very young age to engage at all levels of society. I could talk to a CEO and I could talk to a cleaner. It just sharpened that. My parents had already taught us that a person is a person, titles are something else. But it just cemented it in a very practical way in my profession. And it taught me the language that fits each profile of person. Same message, different language, different thrust. So I was trained in more ways than just understanding the technicalities of journalism. I was taught by experience the technicalities of human engagement.
Wow.
And that was very important for me. That was just God saying, this is you.
This is your purpose.
This is, yes. And I enjoyed, up to this day, I enjoy people.
And then from there, you went to ZBC, am I right?
I went to ZBC while I was at Old Mutual.
Okay.
Old Mutual, my boss, Rita Baker, when I went through what I went through with Richard Lambo, hunting me down and insisting that I come, I approached my boss, Rita Baker, at that time, and I said, there's this opportunity. And what it would mean is I would come to work late each morning. Each morning I was on duty because Good Morning Zimbabwe was from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So I had to negotiate on the Old Mutual side that I come late, but I had to negotiate on the ZBC side that I leave early.
And you managed to do it?
I managed to do it. They were respectful enough. I don't know why they obliged. But I would take interviews from about 6 o'clock to 8:15 because work started at 8:15 at Old Mutual and I didn't want to be too late. And I would fly across.
From that side to that side?
Yes, from Highlands to Emerald Hill. I would fly across so that I would be at work at the latest 8:30, 8:45. And why Rita obliged, she said it's reasonable for you being in public relations to have an understanding of that world and to network with people. We don't know what it will open up for us as a company, but it's good for you to be in that space.
So you did corporate communications with Old Mutual for 6 years.
Yes.
And then 2 years with SMM. Remind me what SMM is, by the way?
Shabanie Mashaba Mines. Yes.
For 2 years.
Yes.
When you look at that space, corporate communications, PR, your experience then and what it is right now, what's your sense? What's changed? What's remained the same?
In the corporate communication space. At that time, there were very few people in that space. I think it was a space that was not always understood. You were called in when there was trouble. You were not always called in for the strategic thinking. Because what it is you need to be able to understand where the company is going, where the entity, whether it's an NGO, corporate, like the corporates I've worked with, whatever, even a church, you need to understand where it's going so that you can structure a strategic communications direction for it, including who says what and when. Yeah. But at that time, it was more reactive rather than proactive. I find today the young people coming into the environment today have a little bit more leeway to be in the space from a strategic perspective. Yes, they have more space to inject into the strategic thinking. Even me sitting now, I get called in by clients to give advice from a strategic perspective. Which direction should we take?
Do they take the advice?
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do.
other times it takes a long time. And still other times you find they get into a jam after ignoring a piece of advice. And they say, call her back. Or call her back. I can put her
What does that say about the corporate sector's appreciation of strategic communication and the role of professional PR?
I think the bigger corporates are getting it now. They've got it, and they've got the right people in the right places, or at least trying to get the right people in the right places. They recognize that it is actually very damaging not to have a strategic thrust in terms of your communication and be deliberate. It mustn't be incidental or coincidental. It must be deliberate so that it ties up with what you're wanting, where you're wanting to position yourselves, not only in relation to competition, but in the eyes of your market. You want to be perceived a certain way, so you must communicate. I mean, it boils down to, if I give you as an example, Trevor, as a young man, when you were approaching a young lady, you didn't just...
No.
Yes, even if you had to borrow shoes to look the part. Communication is like that. You borrow the shoes to look the part because you want a particular...
clean up.
Yes. You want people to see you for what you believe yourself to be. So if you believe yourself to be a particular thing, but you don't make yourself ready to arrive looking the part, you're already compromising that. So the bigger corporates are seeing it. And it's something that needs to...
I'm surprised, Chipo, that you say that, because I don't know whether I'm not reading enough. I'm not seeing it.
My judgment is really by the number of colleagues in the industry who have risen to certain levels that you would never in the past see people in communications rise to. You look at Busi Chindo.
Yeah, true. She's set where you're sitting now. Yeah.
There's no way years ago you'd have seen someone sitting in that position and saying, from a communications perspective, from a CSI perspective, that's corporate social investment perspective, let's go this route, and be listened to and be given a budget that suits the purpose.
That role.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying, I mean, look at my friend Lillian Bayua.
Yes, at Old Mutual.
She's sitting in a position that years ago you would not have seen someone sitting in there at that level, talking.
Okay, I get your point.
You see my point?
I get your point.
So the numbers are increasing, perhaps not at a pace that one might want, but we have proof that there is a change of mindset. Yes.
And then for me, watching you from the 22-year-old rising up, the highlight for you must have been the OK Group. 2008 to 2013, first of all as public relations manager and then marketing manager. And of course, I'm sure you enjoyed the OK Grand Challenge. You must miss it. No,
you guys enjoyed it. I worked on it. Totally different thing when you're sitting on the inside. I remember Albert Katsandi, who was my boss, when I was interviewed and I got the job. And I think he said it jokingly, but I didn't take it jokingly. He said to me, you flopped the Grand Challenge. Don't even wait to be fired.
Just walk out.
Just go home. Just go home. I think it was his way of emphasizing
the importance
of that event. It was the flagship event of the OK Group. It was really anchoring all the communications that went out.
What were the learnings from that season, the OK season? What were the learnings for you, the takeaways?
When you're given permission to think and you prove your thinking capacity, you can make waves. I think in those 6 years, I made more waves than in all my other platforms.
So I was right after all.
Yes. I think the other platforms, maybe I was too junior or there wasn't space for me. I performed at the level that I was given permission to perform. But when I went to OK, as PR manager, I joined the corporate at a time where there was no stocks on the shelves. Remember 2008
Yes.
and 2009, there was nothing on the shelves pretty much. I remember going on my induction tour, and I went to Rusape branch, and on the shelves were soya chunks and condoms. Wow. And everybody laughs when I say that, but that is the truth. There was hardly anything in the store. And some friends said, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to yourself? There's nothing in retail. It's not the right time to go into retail. And I said to them, if I make waves when there's nothing to make waves about, can you imagine what I can do when there's something to make waves about? And what I did is I spent my time during my induction understanding the business, understanding what made it tick. And one of the things was we had to keep our shops open, even if there was nothing on the shelves. And the company was going through a season of dealing with electrical challenges, electricity cutouts and things like that. So they were putting generators in each of the stores. And during my tour of duty, I would find generators humming with nothing in the store because you had to keep the store open. And I gave myself the task of just understanding who was making money and where the generators should run. And I did a report which I submitted to Albert, which quantified the amount of sales per branch and the amount of expenditure for the generators. And he came down to my office. He said, who did this? And I said, I did. And he walked away. But it's obviously something that they used later on because the way that fuel was allocated for the generators changed.
Okay.
And it just taught me that where there seems to be no work, if you look for it, there is work that you can use to change what is going on the ground. So that incident made me realize that I can contribute. Marketing is not just dealing with the clients, it's laying the foundation within for you to deal with the clients better.
But you got to have the initiative.
Yes. Yes.
And not wait to be
told, do this. Yeah. Because I could have happily sat in my office and said, there's no promotion.
And listen to the generators.
Yes. Yes.
The OK Grain Challenge. You said you worked, but some of us thought you were having fun. Some of us think that anybody involved with the OK Grain Challenge is having fun. What's the biggest takeaway for you there as a professional behind this big event, the logistics and everything else? What's your takeaway? What did you walk away with?
This is very cliche. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay. It's a cliche, but it's true. I had a core team of 4, if you like. I had my display manager, who was Ishmael Marimirofa. I had my PA, Nyasha Kadunguri. I had Linda, who was doing the design, the internal design, Linda Gore. And I had Lindani, who eventually left, and then I had to take his portfolio, who was dealing with the advertising. And then we had our agency. But those 4 people could have, in their own spheres, made it or broken it for me. So the key thing was we had to be a team in every sense of the word. I couldn't be boss. I had to be team leader. Bosses don't get listened to. Team leaders get listened to. And when you're a team leader, that means you're not only sensitive to the work, you're sensitive to the people doing the work. So if you were a member of your team, of my team, and your child got sick, I landed at your doorstep and understood what you were going through, so that I appreciate why sometimes at work you are tense or you are not focused and you need that support to say, okay, I understand. What do you need to do? Do you need to rush to the hospital? So a team is sensitive. A team leader is sensitive to their team. And one thing that made the Grand Challenge work, I'll tell you the facets of the Grand Challenges now, was that my team believed in me. They knew more about the Grand Challenge than I, especially Ishmael and Nyasha and Lindani, because they'd been there years before me and they'd done several Grand Challenges before. But because we quickly cemented a relationship, they showed me the pitfalls and the opportunities that were there. It was up to me to decide what opportunity to grab and what to run with and what not to run with. So the teamwork made the dream work. The Grand Challenge is a monster. I salute anyone who takes it on because it's a monster. It's literally 4 events in one.
How many years did you run it?
6 years.
6 years.
The first year.
So you took on the monster
actually
for
5
years, yeah?
Yeah, because 2018,
Yeah.
we did 2008, nothing happened really, except the race. And 2009, pretty much the same. The big one that I did was starting 2010. But the other 2 years, we just had the race. Yeah, it's really 4 campaigns in one, 4 events in one, if you like. You've got the in-store campaign that starts the whole promotion, runs generally for 6 to 7 weeks, and then you have at the event itself, you have 3 entertainment areas or 3 hosting areas. You have the VVIP, where you have the top 100 to 120 people. We stretched it to 120 because we had VVIPs who really wanted to come.
People still wanting to be invited,
yes.
yeah?
And then you had the VIP, which is the infield, which at the time that I left, we were accommodating 2,500 people. And then you had the general area, the people's area, if you like, the Povo area. And by the time I left, I think the total event, we counted 62,000 people.
Wow.
That was 2012. 2013, 62,000 people.
That's huge.
In that. So running it, I depended on my lieutenants to be in key areas with a walkie-talkie and a cell phone and a backup cell phone. And I had a walkie-talkie, a cell phone, and a backup cell phone. Albert Katande had a walkie-talkie, a cell phone, and then the people at Mashonaland Turf Club, the key people, had the same. So I had Kambudzi Kango that doesn't lose battery fast, and I had my smartphone and I had a walkie-talkie, because you have to, you're still responsible. You may not be there, you're still accountable for what happens in each area. So before the event came, I did a full tour of each area. And I want to believe everyone who's ever run the Grand Challenge before me and after me does the same thing. Otherwise, it won't work.
It won't work.
It won't work. You have to know what's happening, who's the anchor of each of those 3 areas. And you have to free yourself to be fluid in a triangle.
Wow. Fascinating. I'm glad I asked you that question because I've learned so much from that. When you look back, what has surprised you the most about yourself in all those roles?
What has surprised me, this might sound odd, what has surprised me the most is, in spite of overcoming certain challenges in my work, in my personal life, in whatever, I still have a fear when I go to a new challenge. And
they say that's a healthy thing to have.
Yes. One of the youngsters that I mentor asked me whether I get nervous when I MC. And I said to them, you don't know how nervous. I get so nervous.
But you don't show it, eh?
In Toastmasters, they say, yeah, get the butterflies, but teach the butterflies to fly in formation. So maybe I've taught the butterflies to fly in formation. So I said, you know what? I still get nervous, but those nerves are good. They don't make me overconfident. They make me look at all the potential areas of stress that could derail whatever I'm doing. And I work at them diligently so that they don't derail. So it's a good nervousness, but that's one takeaway that I've learned. I mean, I'm 55 this February, and I've been going at this for 31 years. I still get nervous.
That's
I still
good
get
thing.
very
it's
nervous.
You're not overconfident. You don't take for granted the assignments that.
The thing is, one shouldn't, because although it's the same task, and you're using the same skill. Remember, I'm about people.
Yes.
You are working with a different group of people, different understanding of you, different understanding of the outcome required, and their own anxieties informed by their own backgrounds. So you're not just managing self, You're managing the bosses of the entity that you're working with. You can tell that boss is so nervous. You need to calm him down. I'll just make you laugh a little bit. And when we did the Y2K program, I interviewed a person on ZTV, TV, and I briefed him before, like we all do, make your guest comfortable. Within the first 3 minutes, the guy was sweating bullets. He was near collapsing. I had to stop the interview. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
You have to see your person and you have to look at their face and actually realize whether you've got them or you haven't got them. That is one.
And you're not there to embarrass them.
No, you're not there to embarrass them. Yeah, that was one that fell through the cracks, but we made sure we mitigated before he was in an embarrassing situation.
Chipo, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to go into your entrepreneurship. You've started 40.7 Blueprint, which is a marketing and corporate communications entity. And you've also started Self Central Institute. I want us to get into what those two companies do. So please, at home, don't go away. Join us after the break.
We leave retirement planning to a very late stage. You can't start planning your retirement at 50, it's too late.
Greetings, my name is Trevor Ncube, host of In Conversation with Trevor, Zimbabwe's most engaging conversational show. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. We've brought before your screens change makers from arts, business, and politics, and from the region. Please join our growing community of viewers. Subscribe, like, and share. Welcome back to our conversation with Chipo Mashingaidze, consultant, certified life coach, and entrepreneur. Where were you born? Where did you go to school?
I was born in Gwanda at Manama Mission. My mother is a Sotho woman, was a Sotho woman. She's late, and my father was a Karanga boy from Berengwa. I have no idea how they met, but I suspect it's because my father was in the teaching profession, and you know how they used to move around a lot. And I think that's where he saw his princess and decided to sweep her off her feet.
Right.
Yes. So I was born in Manama, Gwanda, at Manama Mission Hospital in Gwanda.
Which schools did you go to?
I went to, I was in Gweru for primary school. Muunga Primary School was my first school. Then I went to Riverside. No, that's a lie. I went to convent. You know where Regina Mundi is now?
Yes.
It was the Gweru convent before, and it was a primary school. So I went to the convent. But when the war was hotting up a little bit, the nuns were insecure being by themselves way out. The houses that you see today were not there. It was quite a drive out of town. So we had school buses shipping us there, rather like Eaglesville does.
Right.
Yes. And they closed the school when I was going into grade 6 or 7, grade 6, because they felt insecure. We had bomb warnings, we had attack warnings.
That was the
those
season.
drills,
Yeah.
they said they were traumatizing the children. So the school was closed and I went to Riverside for grade 6. Then my father was moved when I was going into grade 7 and we settled in Masvingo, which is home territory. And that's where my family's been. So I went to Victoria Primary School and then Victoria High School.
And then University of Zimbabwe.
University of Zimbabwe.
And talk to me about the impact that your parents had on you. What have you carried from the memories of your formative years? My parents were both teachers, but I want to see them as my first life coaches. We were a family predominantly of girls with just one boy. And when we grew up... How many girls?
5 in the
girls.
house, yes. And then my brother, who was the second born. When I was born, coincidentally, my father expected another boy because I was 4th.
Right.
So he'd had a girl and a boy, then a girl, and he thought the 4th is going to be a boy. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So my parents were teachers, but I think they were life coaches in their own right because they gave us such a self-belief. My father was ahead of his time. He was an engaged father. And he was an engaged partner for my mother, I think. Yes. I think they made a very powerful duo. And my mother they were both disciplinarians, but the first level of discipline came from my mother. If that didn't do it.
Daddy comes in.
Oh, yes. He was a man of few words when he disciplined. He was a man of action.
Yeah.
But I was a daddy's girl.
Okay.
A pure daddy's girl. But what they did for us was, whenever there was a major family decision to be made or major discipline to be meted to one of us, the dining room table became a conference table. My father at the head, my mother opposite him, and the 6 children, 3 on this side and 3 on the other side. And my father would present the issue. There's this and this going on, or we are doing this and this, and he'd go by seniority. Mevi unofunge, Gerald unofunge, Nyaradzo, Chipo, Nakotine unofunge. We'd each get an opportunity to weigh in. And then he would say, your mother and I. It was never just me. Your mother and I were thinking this and this.
What did that teach you? What has that taught you?
I count. My opinion counts. I matter. I have a brain, and I can engage it, and I have permission to express it. It's a little difficult when you go into an environment where you meet people who haven't been given that permission, and they feel maybe you're expressing yourself or expressing your opinion is being forward. Is a threat. It's a threat. You now have to be tactful to be heard without being threatening. And that's always a tricky bit.
Fascinating. Talk to me now about your decision to get to start your own business. Like I said before we took the break, 40.7 blueprint. And then the one that fascinates me is Self-Central Institute. I mean, I am all for taking care of ourselves. But what was the journey like for becoming an entrepreneur, from being an executive to an entrepreneur? Talk to me about that. Was there a discomfort? What made you do that?
Actually, I started thinking of it in my 20s when I was sitting in the Old Mutual office. One of the things that Old Mutual did very well, and I want to think they still do it, was retirement planning seminars for certain people. I think they identified them through the pension plans that they ran. It was through the pensions department, which evolved into the employee benefits department. And what they do is they invite whoever the person who was in employment was and their spouse, and they would take them through this retirement planning program. Now, I was pretty young then. I was in my 20s. But understanding what was carried in that retirement planning and what was being mitigated made me realize that sometimes we leave retirement planning to a very late stage. You can't start planning your retirement at 50, it's too late. Because your energies are in your 20s and in your 30s and in your 40s. And the opportunities are sitting in those spaces. So immediately I said to myself, what's not going to change that's going to keep my lifestyle the same? An income that is aligned to the economy of the day. The only way you're going to have an income that is aligned to the economy of the day is to have a going enterprise, a running enterprise while you're living in your twilight years. That was my motivation. Wow. It's ridiculous at 23, 24 to think about like that. But that was my motivation. My intention was not to leave immediately, but to be very clear.
Wow. That's to be intentional.
Intentional about planning. And at that early age, I would have 5-year plans. If I'm going to do this, that's when I actually went to Rapid Results College to get a certificate in PR and a certificate in marketing so that I wasn't just trained on the job. I actually had the technical training to understand what it was. Because I knew that being in that space, the likelihood of changing route was slimmer than staying en route and adding to whatever I was doing. So that's when I started thinking. At the time, it was fourth dimension. I'd called my enterprise Fourth
And you had to
Dimension.
change the name because there was a name clash. Yeah?
There was a name clash. Yeah. So I said, you know what? I haven't the capacity to fight for it. I can just sit here and think of another name.
Easy.
So by the time we had to change names, I was already doing consultancy work.
So what does 40.7 Blueprint do? What do you do?
Let me come back to Fourth Dimension.
Right.
Fourth Dimension, you see the world in 3 dimensions.
Yes.
And I'm one of those born again, happy clappy, ceiling cleaning Christians. Yes. So whatever I do has to have an injection of who I am spiritually. So Fourth Dimension was the 4th dimension is always the spiritual dimension. You may have your other 3 physical dimensions, but you've got a spiritual dimension. It feeds it. That's why I named it that. So I wanted a name that kept true to my original thinking. 40.7 is a biblical ratio. You always get prepared over a season of 40 days, 40 years, 40 whatever. It's always that. If you go through your Bible, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a season of preparation. There's a cycle of preparation that is biblical that runs over seasons of 40s. 7 is a season of completion. Things are done in 7s. That's why 49 years is, if there's a debt, 50th year, it's cancelled. It's cancelled because that's 7 times 7. Yes. So 7 is a season of completion. You've gone full circle. You must give yourself permission to erase the past and start anew. And I want to believe God walks with you into that new, even if you were hurt in the earlier season. So that's why we called it 40.7 Blueprint. What we're saying is we're a biblical blueprint. We don't take bribes, we don't give bribes. We don't do certain types of jobs if they conflict with our faith. So that's why 40.7 Blueprint.
And you do what?
Marketing and corporate communications, yes. Anything that is in the space of communicating with your publics. Yeah. Whether it's from the PR perspective, stakeholder engagement perspective, marketing, or just getting your communications.
Who are your key clients, Chipo? Can you name? Are you at liberty to name them?
Some of them I'm at liberty to name. I've done work for Nyaradzo. I still do a little bit online. I get more calls. I feel like a call center sometimes. Nyaradzo. I've done work for Divine Lugula. Those 2 people, Phil Mataranyika and Divine Lugula, were 2 of the people who trusted me when I first started consulting. So they're very close to my heart. They started a teeny pop.
Isn't it great to have people that trust you when you start?
Yes. Because they give you a chance. Yes. And the good thing is they know you're starting and they know you're nervous, but they still believe in what is inside of you and they help you extract it. They mine you, actually. They mined me.
And you're executive director of South Central Institute. Talk to me about that.
South Central came out of me when I was doing work for Old Mutual, who carried on consulting with me, and I do training for them. They are the ones who pivoted me into training. From the time that I did the training with Lukungwerume, I did more training. In fact, I trained the whole company in terms of grooming department around the country. And then they asked me to do other work, develop other modules, and I started doing that. That's when I decided to formalize and actually get trained and become a proper certified licensed life coach. And I did that. And South Central Institute came out of that. It didn't make sense to let the coaching and training side sit with the marketing side. Although they both deal with people, they're very different in what they do for people. In marketing, you're helping people get out into the public sphere. In South Central, in the coaching side, you getting inside people and helping them reveal the best of who they are. And I needed to do that. And Old Mutual saw that in me before I saw it in myself. So South Central Institute is centered around that. South Central is a name that I came from a friend. I said to him, he's an advertising person. and Thomas Musoni. I said to him, I want a name that tells people it starts from within. The self is central to any other decision you make. How far you go in life depends on how you see yourself and how you put yourself out there, and how you take all the resources within and use them for the external space. And he came up with Self-Central.
Beautiful.
So it's called Self-Central Institute. Some Christians have said to me, aren't you saying no? I'm saying no.
Yeah, no.
No, God has deposited everything in me. That's all I'm saying. And I'm central to making it come out and manifest.
So self-central, how does Chipo lead herself?
Yes.
How do you lead yourself?
How do I
lead How myself? Do you lead yourself?
I've learned
what are your habits in being self-central?
My habits are, I'm a very, very early riser. What I had to learn is who I am and where my creativity or where my best work is done in terms of the time of day. And I'm an early riser. No matter what day of the week it is, I'm up at 4:30. And I'm up either introspecting or reading something or looking for something. A lot of I've always got a notebook in my handbag, and that notebook either transfers to my bedside or I have a second notebook at my bedside.
I have to ask you this. When were you born?
1969.
Oh no, what month?
February the 16th,
Interesting.
1969. I'm an old bird.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. So you're an early riser, you keep a notebook by your side. What else?
When I talk to people and they see me writing, sometimes they think I'm writing what they're saying. I'm writing what I have been inspired to learn from them. Everybody is a learning experience for me. Everybody. That makes me
You
tick.
can say that again. I'm a sponge.
Yes, I just sponge. And I don't necessarily squeeze out what they've told me, but I sponge it, let it stew a little bit, and then I bring out my own thing. So I look like I'm very clever, but I'm not. I'm an average person who's recognized what works for me, and I use it to the maximum.
You know yourself?
I know myself. Yes, I even know my weaknesses, and I know when to bring somebody in to mitigate my own weakness.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
What's the next big thing for you?
The next big thing for me is through Self-Central. I really believe Africa as a whole suffers from universal PTSD, which takes away a lot of our confidence, even in spaces that we should shine. As individuals in a continent that is still growing, that has still got room to shine. Everybody's eye is on Africa. Everybody's eye is on Zimbabwe. So I believe through my coaching, I can help people as individuals become the best versions of themselves. If we're rocking the boat with PTSD, can you imagine what we can do without it?
Absolutely. What is the one thing that you failed at? What's one thing that's humbled you? What have you gotten wrong in your life?
There are two things, one in business and one in my personal life. I've taken some wrong turns, and they've made me realize I don't know everything.
That's humbling, isn't it?
Yes. And what it did, I came to a ridiculous stage where even as I was doing my daily chores, I would be talking to God. It sounds very funny.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I do that when I'm driving.
And you're saying, Bukira and Sisa, you're talking to God. And you say, I don't understand this. Or these plates, I need a new set of plates. Became a friend. I became friendly with God. Another thing that it taught me is starting afresh is not a crime. You're not starting from a position of failure. You're starting from a position of learning.
Wisdom.
Yes. So I failed at business twice. 40.7 is my third attempt. Well, it failed. 40.7 failed twice because I couldn't pivot. I couldn't find my bearing when things in the economy changed. And this third time I've learned that rigidity causes breaks. You need to be rubber.
Absolutely.
You need to be rubber. So yeah, so I've learned that from my own experiences, and I'm still learning. Just because I'm talking about it doesn't mean the learning is complete.
No.
The learning is still
it's complete
ongoing.
when you're 6 feet under, isn't
Yes.
it? Then you're done.
Yes.
Wow. I've enjoyed talking to you. We could go on, and those two coincidences, I don't think they're coincidences. I hope they're lessons out there, very important ones. You know I love books, eh?
Yes.
And I'm not going to let you go before you share your books that you've read with the audience. People crucify me every time I forget this segment. So what 3 books have you read that you want to share with the book-loving audience, and why are you sharing them?
In the past few years, I've reverted to reading the leadership books that I've read from.
So you're rereading?
I'm rereading. I'll tell you why. Miles Monroe and John Maxwell. I've also taken to reading Joe Mutizwa and Dr. Mgawiri. Miles Monroe and John Maxwell, because they were my first injection into reading about success and leadership success, particularly.
Any specific books? Any particular books, rather, from John Monroe and John Maxwell?
The 21 Irrefutable Rules of Leadership.
Yeah.
Yes. That I'm rereading and looking at each of the 21. I read it like I read the Bible. Read and introspect and apply. I study, read. Yes. For Miles Monroe, I'm watching a video based on his book on Black leadership. How we come into leadership with luggage that we need to unravel before we can truly lead. I can't remember the title of the video. It's just escaped me, but...
of leadership is the mindset, the attitude that makes a leader different from a follower.
Joe Mutizwa, I started reading because I knew him from the Delta days. And when I was at OK, he came for our strategic planning retreat and talked about governance. So I'm starting with his first book. Titles are not good.
The Crucibles of Life. I've read that book.
Yes. I want to read and understand what those crucibles are and where it applies to me. It's always about me, self-central, remember. So I'm reading that. I'm still trying to see which one of Dr. Mgawiri's books I read first. I haven't started on that one. But mainly because of leadership. And I studied leadership when I did my master's. It was really entrepreneurial leadership in Zimbabwe. Why some entrepreneurial leaders succeed and have legacies. Yes, have legacies and others don't. And that's why I'm very interested in rereading it and seeing what works and seeing whether I can pick up nuggets that make me an entrepreneurial leader or leave a legacy.
What you're saying there, Chipo, is essentially we learn and grow when we focus on ourselves.
Yes, indeed.
It's about me.
Yes. Everything
is about me, how I react to it. It's about me, how I grow from it. It's about me, how I respond to things. Yeah.
Yes. Very much so.
Awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Allow me now to tend to our viewers who are all over the world. Thank you so much for supporting us over the years. You know, I've been boasting about 8.2 million views, 55,000 subscribers, huge on TikTok, huge on Instagram. Thank you. Remember, we are a weekly show. We are out on YouTube, 7 a.m. Central African time. To ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations like the one I've had with Chipo here, please click here to subscribe. Remember to like, remember to share. And we enjoy your comments below the video. We love your suggestions as to who should come onto the show. We've gone a step further and created a website where all our content sits. And on that website, you'll find podcasts for your listening pleasure. You listen as you're working, you listen as you are on the treadmill, Thank you so much for your support. Until next time, cheers to you all.